Next up is water pollution map.
Hello, everyone. So, our 2017-2018 budget, probably the first things that jump out at you guys would be an increase in our professional services. So I'll start right at the top. I believe starting right at the top, we have our salary line, which I believe that's all contractual. If any of you had any confusion over the 16-17 budgeted number being the number that it is compared to in the 17-18 request also being that same number, I can let you know that there was some mix up there because in the previous year, our clerk was doing work for CRAD and doing work for us. And the way that it was organized was the CRAD was reimbursing the town and we were paying our employee. So I believe that's where that number came from, because that's never been that contractual salary number. Moving in our professional services, as you guys know, I've talked to you about this before. We had a quote from our attorney at Shipman Goodwin for $25,000 for it was a lump sum a few years ago. It was an estimate for going through the process of acquiring a piece of land for discharge here in town. Since that time, and looking at the timeline for in the like a projected timeline, assuming all this stuff tracks in some fashion forward. I can determine with my commission that we weren't going to be using $25,000 of legal for for like an eminent domain or something of that sort. That wasn't going to be happening during the next budget year. So I talked to the attorney, and we as a commission actually have been talking with professional appraisal service, and I asked for $70,000 for this year, and what that was going to be was the money that the attorney would need for helping us put in place policies and ordinances that are part of our facilities plan. Okay, John?
Yeah.
I'll give you a second. Okay. Yeah. I get choked up over this stuff too. So, where was I? I talked to our attorney, and we talked as a group. And what we really need to do is we need to fill in certain parts of the facilities plan that we have not done. And the one big thing we did was this is all long-term planning here. It's nothing that you want to talk about in a budget year. But real quickly, so there's this long-term planning. There's this consent order for potentially sewering the town. We, through the years, have negotiated with the state and said, hey, we have better ideas. And we've cut down these large swaths of the town down to focused areas that, frankly, have had the worst historical problems. So by doing that, we now have created the give and take with the state was, okay, well, we want to see you have, ordinance. We want to see you have a program in place for making sure that those areas that we took off the table aren't forgotten, even though they're not going to be sewered or taken care of otherwise. So those are pieces that need to be worked out. It's required by law, and we need to get it, we need to get it into our plan. So that's where the legal comes from. Appraisal services, I have in that group. The big thing that you folks have asked us, and every person on the street asks us, and everybody at the coffee shop asks us, is, how in the world could we ever pay for this? And, I usually say, well, we can't, but we need to keep plugging forward. So one of the here I'm struggling for expressions here, but the gorilla in the room with this one has been. Okay, let's take this pie, and how would you break it up in an equitable fashion, and what's the most money that we can potentially get from the state? What's the most money that we can get from grants, Clean Water Fund, reimbursement to do this big project. Where we ended up this year, and it was after capital improvement budgets already went in, it was right around the time that we had finalized this budget, was identifying that there's appraisal services out there that can help us determine a special benefit assessment for properties that would be serviced by our planned sewers. So in order to determine what part of that pie would be paid for by the folks that would see the biggest benefit, you would need to do this special benefit assessment. And by law, the town cannot charge a benefit assessment to these folks that exceeds whatever the maximum benefit that they would see on an appraisal basis for an increase in value in the property. So that's a plan that I think was going to be more like a $50,000 plan, but is now knocked down to kind of a $10,000 plan for this next year, is to get that work started, because then at least we can speak to that number and at least move forward with what we've been doing, and not let this go by the wayside.
That's part of professional services?
Yeah, that's in the professional service line. That's where that 35 came from. We asked for 70. Board of Selectmen came up with 35 on their own, and we're trying to work with that. And I've tried to come up with a way to make that work and to show progress in that line, because that line has been carried over. There hasn't been progress in that line, so I think I can actually show some progress in that line this year, which will help all the rest of these things get done. Because I know you're sick of hearing me talk, and you're sick of hearing the story on paper for the Clinton events being the same story, so we're trying to add chapter. Working your way down our request, the rest of the things are pretty standard fare for WPCC. There's things, good, 27,000 out of that is stuff that we're stuck with for the time being, based on orders from the state and sampling that's being done to support the facilities planning effort that I'm not willing to cut out just yet until we get a formal approval. We have conditional comments back from the DEP, and that's a big thing since the last time we met with you guys. So it shows that our group has moved further than the groups in the past, because we have some very positive comments back, and our consultant is addressing those as we speak. But that's where the big chunk of the money is as you move down as you'll see on the detailed explanation sheet that I provided you. So, working your way all the way down to the bottom number, I'll jump there quickly. You'll see. See, that salary number wasn't correct, but somewhere, you're looking at somewhere around a $10,000 increase from the previous year, with the promise that we're going to do something with it this year. That's about all the, talking I can do about this. I can address questions if each or any of you.
Can I throw out the first question? This is actually a loaded question.
Yeah,
I know there's
I'm used to these.
House legislation, the Senate legislation, the alternative treatment facility. Not bouncing around. Are you aware of that?
Yeah,
we're going anywhere.
We're aware of it. I'm trying to think, where did it end up? I had such a busy work week that I forgot where it ended up. Essentially, there's been some of it on the books, and what this legislation was trying to do was make it easier for the DEP and the DPH to actually push forward with researching the alternative treatment and bringing the state up to date with Rhode Island and Massachusetts, giving us more tools and more arrows in our quiver for solving the wastewater problems in town. Now, do I think that's going to happen anytime soon? I don't think so, but it was a valiant effort to to do what we did and show support, we reached out to our legislators and got our comments up there in time, as did some of our neighboring areas in our health department. So I don't know the answer of where it ended up, Jack. Do any of you folks? Do you recall where it ended up?
I found out about it, there's other bills in there too, there's at least two committees.
Yeah, there were the two big ones that
There's
really
There's
affected.
another one, that I spoke to one of the co-chairs of the Environment Committee, which is a neighbor down the road, right? So
Sure.
I figured I'd talk to Senator Kennedy before I came in here tonight, so I'm gonna go up and meet with him tomorrow. And then we'll talk about where they are, what the stats are, so at least we kind of know. It would be helpful, to kind of maybe, for us to kind of know things, because some people have some connections that could go up and, maybe help you on some of this stuff. But right now, I'm not sure about who the co-chair of the Senate, because the Senate's an interesting situation up there with an even split. But one thing, I guess, I have in general, speaking about the whole budget, we're going to spend $10,000 on coming up with an assessment system on something that we don't even know what we're doing yet. I understand you're preparing for things, but we could spend $70,000 on professional services, and we have a referendum votes this thing down. I don't know what the $70,000 does for us when someone votes it down, other than we're prepared for some kind of a court order. Is that what we're doing?
That was my question as well, why?
I mean, are we preparing for the court order?
Preparing for the next
court
enforcement
order.
action?
Right.
You're saying the next enforcement action against us?
He means the court.
Court order.
Yeah.
Not DEP taking an action, talking about a court dictating.
So you're talking about the DEP going to the Attorney General?
Right.
That type of deal?
I mean, is that what we're doing? I mean, we ought to be a little more transparent, because I want to know we're spending $70,000 on preparing for something. Is our posture here that we're going to move forward and figure that this is the best we can get, and then if we can't get it passed, a referendum in the town, which is, by the way, I'm the odds maker, I know what I'm going to put the odds on that one.
Yeah, it's not tough.
So that we positioned ourselves here to start to know how, when the court orders us to do it, how we would implement it. And I guess some of the questions about, you can't assess more than what the assessment is, who does the assessment, when you look at land values, when you can reduce the area that's set aside for septic, there's a lot of unknowns and all this stuff. So, I mean, just a thought, your thought process as a commission, how did you really come to that?
Let's see, I'll keep going back to our Bible here. It's this facilities plan that is front and center on the 1997 consent order between the town and state. And the facilities plan that we have put together spells out a solution. And in order to, even if that solution goes to referendum, we'll say, a couple of years from now, and gets shot down, and the state is really strong at the time, DEP's fully staffed, Attorney General, chomping at the bit to come after us, will likely happen at some point. But even if all that happens, we need to be able to have, we need to be able to know what portion of it can we pay as a town. Even if it's not as a, it's part of our plan.
In reference to this hiring the attorney to write ordinances, to put that on the backbone of the homeowner that is having their corrections made in their septic.
Well, there's several ordinances that need to be drafted up as part of the facilities plan. And these are not just to put things on the back of the people who are
Well, that's what they are. There will be regulations enforcing your mandates for corrections of water contamination.
Or for tying into sewer.
Right.
Yeah, and for, the only way that we can meet the order is that negotiation that I've described. And that negotiation and, you know, we'll take all the help we can get from Hartford, but the way that negotiation has gone so far is that we've whittled down these areas. And at this point, we have ordinances and policies that we need to put together in our facilities plan that are going to serve, one of them, for instance, is going to serve two purposes. That purpose is one that Peter and I are involved in, is, you know, the Rocky Ledge Water Main Project. We've proposed and got a design from our engineers for Rocky Ledge Water Main, which is going to alleviate water contamination issues and also satisfy this part of the facilities plan by not requiring sewers up that way, which in an area called Rocky Ledge would be mighty expensive. So how do we do that? You know, we have a project, you know, we're looking at, you know, we'll say $4.5 million project to run water up that section of 81 and service each of those neighborhoods. We need to get as much money as we can from the water company to pay for that project. The water company is getting all of this infrastructure from us. So the only way that we can show the water company that they will get each of these customers and therefore give us as much money possible is to show that we have a policy and a proposed ordinance in place that will allow that money to come through. And, you know, we've sat down with the water company enough times now to know that they're not going to show their hand, but we know it's a lot of money.
Yeah, Jack, I know, because we talked about this going in the past. Now, if everyone's mandated to connect, obviously I'm the water company and I'll say, okay, I can count the customers. But if you're not going to mandate anybody to hook up, then the water company's going to say, hey, you know what? I may not get anyone.
The water company requires a service agreement with the customer before they count that as a actual customer.
But you know what I'm saying?
No,
Is
but
that-
and so I think part of the way the project was addressed is that the project's actually going to pay to hook the customer up.
Well, that's the other question I had. I mean, you see a house on this, it was a house for sale today, $129,000. I don't know who owns houses, who's leasing houses. The question becomes, you put a water main, who's going to pay for the hookup to the house?
Right
If
now-
they don't hook up.
Program is,
The Department of Health Services on the,
How do you enforce it?
well,
Come to our meeting on March 14th.
the way the Department of Health Services looks at it is before they would deny the low-interest loan amount, they would pay to put the curb stop in, but not to go from the curb stop to the house.
Right.
They were, in the middle of this whole planning.
That changed.
They changed it. And now we'll give you a low-interest loan, it'll include that.
Water company's going to give that?
No, the Department of Health Services, part of their loan program.
And then just one final thing on what we're talking about, septic. Okay, so now what we've done is we've given them city water. Again, looking at the wherewithal, who has the money and everything else, where are they going to get the money to remediate their septic systems after they're eligible to be
Well,
permanent?
there weren't, I don't know if there's any really tremendous failures up there.
Yeah, I don't,
Well, I thought we were doing this because of all the failures.
Groundwater.
Well, because
There's no fade, if,
just bear with me for a
Yeah,
second.
you gotta listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, you gotta listen to the primer.
Yeah, you gotta listen to the
Here's
whole
the
thing.
primer. The primer is that you have small lots
I understand.
with septic and well.
And I understand
They can't fix
75
Separation distances. So you understand that stuff?
So I gotta run a main all the way up there because one failure?
No.
I'll
Right
buy the
now,
house. I'll buy the house and run 25 foot on the house.
right now what we have is no ability to improve these systems in a working towards code compliant type of direction. Distracted by Anna. What's going on?
What's the matter? She's got
Restless leg. She has a leg.
She got sleeping leg.
okay,
Yeah, so
I understand it's a 75 feet.
Yeah, so to set 75 feet aside, these properties can't do what they need to do when they need to do it. So they're the same as any of us, any of you guys, myself, right now. If we had a failure, we'd have the ability to fix it, we'd call somebody and they'd fix it. Up there, it wouldn't even be close to code. And their wells, unlike many wells in town, already have and have had for decades upon decades indications of the water supply being compromised. So what will happen You run water up there, it now creates additional space by taking that well out of the equation, where the systems can be, modified when necessary, when it comes up. One of the ordinances we need to write is, well, what will we accept, as a town? If we're, what will DEP accept? If DEP is going to say, yeah, we'll just run water up there and we'll look the other way at failing septic systems, that's not the deal. The deal is they're not only going to be in the same boat as you and me, but they're going to be in a slightly different boat where when repairs come up, they'll need to be done in a certain way. So I don't think people are going to be hit right out of the gate with a total indemnity. It's essentially, they're going to get water, which they don't have reliable water now. It's going to show some improvement, I imagine, to the values of these properties up there, because right now, they don't have much say on where the septic systems can be, where they can put a deck, where they can put an addition. All that stuff will change when you know that now you can utilize the most area of your property for your septic repairs and changes. So I hope that answers it.
Kirk, you have a question?
Well, I mean, doing the math on all this, clearly you've got 120 homes up on Rocky Ledge, $4.5 million, and is the state going to pay anything for that? Probably not, right?
That still has not been 100% determined, because there may be grant money. What we're looking at right now is a low-interest loan, a 20-year loan from the Department of Public Health that Peter and Bruce and I have been working on for the past year. And as Pete just pointed out, we just found out this fall that there was a change in policy that's going to allow that loan to cover right up to people's homes instead of just to the street. As you can imagine, if it only covered up to the street, we'd have a very hard time getting connections, because you're looking at, working class folks that, might have a hard time pulling 10 grand out of their bank account to make the connection.
Right, I think isn't it the only place that's serviced by wells? That is in the
Needs areas?
yeah.
Let's see, there are other wells in the needs areas, not as big as this area. Yeah.
No, most of them are 2 acres north.
Yeah, they're bigger areas. These are very, you're going to wind up either putting sewers in there or putting public water.
It's a unique animal. Yeah, it's kind of double whammy animal.
This is not a question, this is a statement. This is shocking to me and sad. I looked at the foreclosures of all the surrounding towns, Guilford, Madison, Clinton, Westbrook, Old Saybrook today. We have 75%, we have almost 3 foreclosures a month in Clinton. There's 34 foreclosures in Clinton in the past 12 months. That means that the surrounding towns are economic. It's a statement, it's not a question, just to let you know that in the surrounding towns that we have 5, 10 foreclosures. This town right now is poverty-stricken.
Any other questions from that?
Well, on the issue, you were talking about some ordinances. I mean, I know, and you mentioned Massachusetts. I know in Massachusetts, if you want to sell a house, you have to have your septic working and up to code. Is there anything that would allow us to do that in Clinton, where you couldn't sell a house without it meeting certain health requirements?
Many of the systems, if not a lot of the systems in town, would never meet health code. There's just too many restrictions. So what the local health district has the ability to do is to grant exceptions to their own rules. And so if we were to try to write it and expand upon our pump out ordinance, that says pump out your system every 5 years, and typically that happens when houses change hands, which is great, and we get that information too through our Carmody system. But if we were to expand that too far, then I think we'd be creating kind of an undoable situation. It's just,
But my question is can we put in is it okay in Connecticut? Is it allowable? The state statute allows us to require, if you want to sell a home, you have to have it up to code.
to make it code compliant, I don't think we can do that.
Has your attorney researched that?
They did have, when you came to the tanks, in-ground tanks,
there was legislation passed there which was very restrictive on transferring. You weren't able to transfer. You'd have to get legislation similar to when they had the underground tanks. That would put, I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but you would need enabling legislation to do what you're
So is
saying.
it state legislation, or can we do it through
Or that
ordinance?
would be state legislation.
Right.
But you know, it's, but I wouldn't, I'm not gonna buy a house with a failing system.
Yeah,
Well,
well, okay, this could keep going all night. Any other questions?
Well, I mean, it's just doing the math. I mean, we're looking, even if the state pays for 75%, you're looking at $30,000 a house, 1,200 homes. I mean, and that's about $37,000 for 120 homes at $4.5 million. If each of them is paying $250 a year for water, which is about what they pay, it would take the water company 150 years to break even. I mean, that's the kind of number that we're looking at, and just trying to wrap my head around how you ever get there from, aside from whether you can make it politically possible, engineering possible, economically possible. I'm baffled by it. And at some point, you got to find something a lot less expensive.
Well, that's why we have to pay a part and the water company has to pay a part, because it's also alleviating this wastewater problem that is exacerbated by the wells being there. So say it's a $4 million project and we get the water company to pay $2 million, then we're looking at a 20-year loan on the other $2 million. That's
So it takes them 75 years to break even. I mean, that's, those are...
And then maybe we get a grant.
yeah, and then there's potential grant money. A couple of the items that we've been looking at are the small town economic assistance program grants that you're familiar with. We put in for one this past year, and putting in for it again this year. And it's for that project.
You go ahead.
Just to break in real quick, we meet the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. You are all welcome to come.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We need your help too. So.
We do.
And these questions explain why our meetings twice a month go 2.5 to 3 hours each.
Absolutely. Please.
So
join
please
us.
come help.
Can I only say one other thing?
Okay, I'd like to move on.
The one thing that we had trouble with, not the one thing, one of the things we had trouble with in our audit was that we're spending down our undesignated fund with special appropriations in the middle of the year. I just hope the message has gotten across that we're not planning on doing any more of those. So if you want something, now's the time to do it, not in the middle of the fiscal year.
That was my message to the Board of Selectmen, and they, didn't agree as much with my rationale. I guess I didn't make a strong enough case.
Well, I guess I just want
I
to...
asked for more money now in my operating budget.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thank you, Matt.
All right, Jack, thanks.
Okay, Conservation, Bert,